want to preface my answers with a caveat that the answers I give constitute my view, and sometimes my point of view can also be a point of blindness. So you don't have to agree with me. You only have to treat those as my views on the matter at hand. The first question: is it a good idea to have a government in a revolution without a host country? As a student of law and a student of political science in an informal way, there are different models, and there is no one size fits all. There are revolutions which have started by having governments in exile, and they were informed by certain realities. My own view is that every revolution must understand herself, and once it has understood herself, then it can determine whether that is the route to take. History has demonstrated that when you have a government in exile, it is normally babysat by another country, so that that country becomes the guarantor. But as I've said, there have been different models throughout history. So my answer is that the nature and the stage of the struggle is what must define whether one has a government in exile. Different models, one of the most popular models is that you must have actual control of territory in the country that you are talking about, and then you use that as a launching pad so that you hold territory on the ground, and that becomes the basis. But your own revolution and the stage at which it is will determine whether that is the route that you want to take. You've asked whether you need the help of lawyers to direct and guide and prosecute. I take the view that within your revolution you have no shortage of professionals. One of the things that I will guide against is to use money where money ought not to be used. It is very dangerous in the early stages of a struggle to begin to have individuals who are asking for large amounts of money to offer guidance on a matter that does not lend itself to prosecution to conclusion. Within your own ranks, you have lawyers who understand the reality. And there is no shortage of lawyers who can also assist you largely pro bono. So that, and in a struggle, when money becomes the primary focus, then you begin to lose the struggle. Money is a useful facility because it helps people to move, it helps people to do things to that extent only. But if it becomes the primary project, people can also commercialize a revolution. And if you commercialize a revolution, then you never want it to end, because it becomes a source of income. So it is important that you think in yourself, because as many of you know, conflict is a source of money. And there are those who would want conflict to go on and on, so that they can continue to live well. So there must be a limit. The other question that has been asked is, the diaspora that can buy into that is seeing this. I think you should consider much. You know, this is a general question that deals with the question in the place of Africa. I was at a function, I think last week in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got these statistics that nearly $1.8 trillion is spent by the African Americans in this country. We have not talked about the Africans in the diaspora. I now know, for example, that in a country such as, say, Kenya, the remittances that are made to the people of Kenya is possibly the second highest foreign exchange earner. And if you talk to Tanzania or Nigeria or Ghana or even here in southern Cameroon, the money that you send home, if you stop sending it, the quality of people's lives will go down dramatically. The question is, what must Africans in the diaspora do? I believe, and once again, it is very easy, and I don't want to be accused of that, it is very easy to be simplistic in one's responses. It is very easy to simplify a sophisticated problem. But it is important before one responds to a question such as that to realize that although we talk about Africa, Africa is also very diverse. It is diverse so that what works in Ghana is not necessarily what works in southern Cameroon. What works in Benin is not necessarily what works in Togo. But the advantage that those of you who are in the United States of America have is that you are in a country that is a melting pot in many ways. Some of the best brains. In fact, today, if we were to ask ourselves where are the best brains of the people of southern Cameroon, they are not to be found inside Cameroon. They are to be found in the United States of America. They are to be found in Europe. They are to be found in other parts of the world. The very best have left the country. So that if you wanted to change the country, if you wanted to change the education sector in the country, for example, now that they're in the United States of America, if you want to go home, one would want to imagine that you already have programs on education, how to revive the education sector. You have programs on how to revive the health sector. You have programs on how to deal with the health and sanitation. You have programs on how to deal with immunization, because in a war situation, immunizations possibly have not taken place for the last 4 years. Even more. So that diseases that we thought we had conquered, such as polio, will begin to come back again. All those diseases, whether it's bilharzia, whether it's typhoid, whether it's malaria, they are back with a bang. So that if you look at maternal mortality, these are not being documented now. Look at maternal mortality, look at infant mortality, look at crude death rates. The gains that were made between 1960 and possibly 1980 have been lost. In many ways, the infrastructure, because when you are in an environment such as you are, and I know that the southern Cameroons have been shut, people have not been going to school for quite some time, I know that institutions have been beaten to the ground, there are many things that must be done. And I hold the view that those of you who have the advantage of exposure must be prepared. Prepared that when you are called to go back, you can mount certain things almost immediately. I went to a facility in Atlanta where they ship medical equipment to Africa, 40 tons. At the equivalent of only 250,000 United States dollars, and you pay 25,000 United States dollars. There is no shortage of individuals and organizations out here whom you now know who are prepared to help. Once again, and I say this every time, it is very easy for one to simplify a problem. Even the simplest of problems can be complicated. The value of our contribution, those of us who are not from southern Cameroon, is to remind you of a situation that you already know about. And to remind you that the solution will only come from yourselves. And why do I think so? You know, there is a country which I keep on talking about, and sometimes I think I annoy those who are against the Rwanda regime. But the reason why I talk about Rwanda, and I visit Rwanda, this year only I visited Rwanda, I think 3 or 2 times. And I drive across Rwanda, which in 1994 had gone to the ground. And I see the infrastructure. Outside of South Africa, I've not seen roads as beautiful as those in Rwanda. Wow. Outside of South Africa. Outside of South Africa, I've not seen a small country where traffic lights work and people obey them. I've not seen a deliberate effort on the part of government to improve the quality of the lives of the people. I've not seen a country where policemen refuse to be bribed outside of many of them. If you try to bribe them, they'll arrest you. I've not seen a country in the recent history when post-conflict they have resolved their own problems through traditional methods. They have a court system called gacaca. And they resolve their own conflicts, and the people have been resettled, including the perpetrators, some of them. And it convinces me that it can be done. And they did not wait for the world to do it for them. This is a little country whose GDP is no more than 12 billion United States dollars. It can be done. And if you look at what has happened is that the people of Rwanda who are resident outside of Rwanda, even the president was a refugee in Uganda. Even the president was a refugee. Where I volunteered was in the office of John Garang Mabiori in Nairobi when he had been exiled from Zimbabwe. So I worked in his office. In my younger days, I also worked with Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere on the Burundi conflict, and I continue to work with their foundation because there is something that one learns when one works with these individuals. And when you work with individuals, I've always learned one thing. One of the people who impressed me the most in 1994 was Kambarage Nyerere. He said, always remember you are not right, you are not always right. You are not always right. You do not have the monopoly of wisdom or knowledge. And therefore, you must be slow to condemn. But when you condemn on the basis of evidence. Yes. And always give people the opportunity, because people can make the wrong decision, but it does not mean that they have to be condemned for all times. And I have no doubt in my mind that this is the time. The person that has asked this problem is that we have now a number of conflicts in Africa. Apart from Southern Cameroons, you know the Central African Republic is in problems. We know that the Democratic Republic of Congo is in problem. We know that Southern Sudan has a problem. We know that Northern Mali has a problem. We know that there are low intensity problems in Guinea-Bissau. And there are many other conflicts that are going on. But the world does not report them. Because Africa does not tell our story. CNN may report it occasionally, once, and then it disappears. Al Jazeera may report it once and disappears. And then you think that the conflict has disappeared. Or somebody may graciously make a documentary for purposes of money making. Yeah, there are people who do that. They make documentaries to raise funds. Yeah. But beyond the documentary, but we must also thank them, even if they make money. These people who make documentaries, we must thank them. They risk their lives. They bring this information to the world. So we must be eternally grateful. I was very saddened when I watched this documentary. Whether we like it or not, you could see that it took some white man or white men, and you could see anger on their faces to try to bring this to the attention of the world. Where are the African journalists? The African journalists want to report from capital cities. They don't want to go to the bush. This is part of our problem, is that we Africans sometimes want to live in the comfort of the urban areas and to avoid the difficulties that are to be found in the theater of war. And I believe that we must stand up and speak about and against many of these things. I've received phone calls, or whenever I travel nowadays, people ask me, but don't you fear that you will be killed? And I say, yes, I could be killed, but I never quite think about it, whether I'll be killed or not. It doesn't come to my mind. I simply think that the truth must be told.
My name is Elizabeth Ambe. I'm a professor at UMass Law. I'm going to ask you this question. You're not a politician. We have a government that is not a government in exile, that is not hosted by any other government, recognized government. One. Number two, We have not acquired any piece of land yet. We have an interim government. It is the 8th government in exile as far as this struggle is concerned. Now, we do have a government. My question to you is, what strategy do you have to unite us in a meaningful, authentic way so that together we can hold hands and push back on this formidable enemy, La Republique, that we are trying to fight? The struggle is failing because of the division among us. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Toby. I am Nigerian. It seems to me that we are very enamored with Western style solutions to African problems. And one of the things I think about is it possible for Africa to start thinking about Afrocentric solutions to African problems? Have we really missed it in terms of the way we think about some of our challenges? Maybe we rubber stamp solutions, we copy and paste. Maybe we even use the US. I mentioned the US because they're supposedly the bastion of liberal democracy. But some of the things we bring or import are not really working for us in Africa. Maybe we underestimate the idiosyncratic nature or the complexity of our diversity in Africa. So I would like you to speak to that. And then secondly, in your speech, I didn't hear you talk about Western hegemonic influence when it comes to conflicts in Africa. I mean, you could take a trip, sir, from the east all the way to the west, and you see, even, I'm talking post-colonial Africa, you see footprints of Western influence. Very recent example, Ivory Coast. Alassane Ouattara, Laurent Gbagbo, you have France coming in with fighter jets and influencing politics directly over there. So, in southern Cameroon, we know the influence from France. Can you please speak to that? And what are the practical ways that our political leaders who work out solutions with the understanding that there is a powerful force from the West that are influencing politics in Africa? Thank you very much.
Let me start with the first question by the good professor. And there is a statement that he made. Our struggle is struggling. As an academic, you know that all struggles struggle. And it's how you deal with the struggles of the struggle that determines how far you go. I was at one time involved in a country which I will not mention because the conflict is still ongoing. And I was asked a question very close to the one that you've asked. Is it necessary that we must all unite, you must unite all the initiatives as a condition precedent to moving ahead with the struggle? I said that perhaps, even if one desired it, one would not succeed. And that therefore, within the struggle, one must identify the key uniting factors, and that the lines of communication must always remain alive. I give this example. Those of you who are Christians, you see that even on this question of Christ, there are so many streams. We are now in a Presbyterian church. There is an Anglican church and a Catholic church, and all these churches, yet the center is God. If you try to unite all these forces, perhaps you will not succeed. But you must then have an ecumenical forum at which all the critical issues are dealt with, regardless of your orientation. And the thing that divides people most, there are two things that divide struggles. Power. Power is the key word. And money. Those are the two things. And money divides people at two levels. When there is no money or when there is a lot of money. When people are struggling and the money and you can't find, your books are sometimes in the red, sometimes in the black, and they are swinging that way, people tend to be united. And I think that when the struggle struggles, that is when the true leadership actually emerges. That is when the true leadership emerges. And when true leadership emerges, it will be self-evident. It will be somebody who you will recognize, or a group of individuals who you will recognize are not interested in power and are not interested in money, and in the fullness of time people begin to gravitate toward them. So I think that is how the second view that I hold is that when you are in a struggle, you must have a dispute resolution mechanism. And these dispute resolution mechanisms must be informed by the realities. And those realities, we come from a society where being elderly is a very useful thing. The other reality is that we now may have elders who are not elders in the real sense. Chronologically, they may be old, but they are not elders. And I want to make a distinction. But traditionally in African societies, when people grew older, the reason why we went to them, as some people now say, they have made enough mistakes to make them acquire experience. So they are able to tell you, young man or young woman who thinks you have knowledge of everything. In 1960, we did the same thing with the following result. So I think there must be a place for elders in our dispute resolution mechanism. There must also be a place for professionals. By learning, people acquire certain skills. You are a professor in political science and in other areas. There may be elders who can learn from you. So in a short shrift answer, I would say, one, let the struggle produce her true leaders. And it will. Number two, let us anticipate problems and have dispute resolution mechanism. And number three, let us realize that there are certain disputes which will never be resolved. Once you realize that, then you have the majority and you go with the majority, there will be a grumbling minority. Yeah. And within your ranks, and I've seen this and I'm quite certain some have seen this, within your rank you'll find professional fault finders. No matter what you do, they will always find fault with it. A friend, I think it is Albert Einstein, who said that there are people who for every solution they find a problem. Yes. Then what can you do about it? There's nothing that you can do. You simply ignore them and go with the majority. The second question is African unity. I'm not naive. You know, one of the naive things, and those who are romantic Pan-Africanists hold the view that Africa will just unite and it will all be merry and we will now move from Nairobi to Dhaka. Africa has over 3,000 communities, each with their own trees would be grazing their cattle elsewhere, and after the harvest they would come to this land. So there was an informal arrangement. And those methods, of course, were done away with. The African unity that I have in my mind is a unity in diversity. Is a unity that allows me, who is from Nairobi, Kenya, to set up a business in Bamako, in Mali. Is a unity that begins to allow my qualifications in Furabe, in Sierra Leone, to be recognized in Luanda, in Angola, without need for further determination as to whether it is a qualification. It is a unity that allows free movement of goods and services. It is a unity that allows me to use my phone without having to deal with +264 whenever I cross to another country. It is the unity that allows me to use a single currency across the continent. That is the kind of unity that I'm thinking about, and it's not going to happen easily. It is not going to happen quickly. It is not going to be free of conflict. It must be worked out. In fact, in my own view, I believe that the movement towards African unity in a manner that I'm talking about is going to take not less, the early signs of it is not going to take less than 50 years. That is my view. If you, to move in that, and it must start with the regions. The third question from Toby before we allow your intervention is this. We live in a world where survival is for the fittest. That is the reality. This idea that we have that suddenly Europe will stop interfering, that China will stop interfering, or that India will stop interfering, or that the Arabs is completely misguided. The world is about those who seek opportunities. Today, if you discover oil in the Gulf of Mozambique, or natural gas in the Gulf of Mozambique, the reality is that Mozambique does not have the technical know-how to harness those resources. The reality is that Nigeria does not have a properly functioning refinery.
That's right.
The reality is that if we want to mine coltan in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we will need technology from outside of Africa. So that we must be in a position to distinguish interference and trade. The problem that we have in Africa is that we are very weak. I normally love giving this example. Let us take a little African country. Let's take, for example, Benin. Benin is a country complete with a president, complete with parliament, which are all Western, complete with all those things, complete with 21 gun salutes, which are completely un-African. Now, Benin's GDP, for anyone here, is smaller than the earnings of Oprah Winfrey in any 1 year. Fact. That is the fact. So when a country such as that is involving itself in a bilateral arrangement with France, for example, it is a joke. In the time, it's a joke. Because the economy of Benin is perhaps 10 times smaller than the economy of Paris, the capital. But suppose that Benin and the entire region in West Africa was negotiating as one, involving Nigeria, and all the little bilaterals are negotiated under this big context. Then France begins to wake up, because you are now dealing with a population of nearly 500 million. Then suddenly you are dealing with a GDP of nearly 1 trillion. Then you can listen. But you see, Europe and America, Europe particularly, remember, if you ask France today, if you remove the resources that France obtains from Africa, the economy of France would shrink by nearly 50%. By nearly 50%. Therefore, France has interest in every election in their former colony. They want to know who is the president of Senegal. They want to know who is the president of Gabon. They want to know who is the president of Cote d'Ivoire, who is the president of Mali, who is the president of Benin, who is the president of Togo. They want to know who is the president of all these countries and who runs what. And they want them to buy flats in Paris and Marseille. And it is going to continue to happen. And that is why, therefore, in 2013, under Africa Agenda 2063, the African countries said, I hope we'll work at it, that there are two things that Africa must achieve. One, by the year 2020, we silence all the guns. Okay. That all the conflicts in Africa will have been resolved. I don't think it is going to happen, because 2020 is the year after next. And by the year 2025, all the pernicious foreign influence will have been eliminated and Africa will be engaging with other parts of the world on mutually beneficial trade. These are good declarations. But you and me remember, there is no shortage of declaration that we make every year. And in order for us to liberate ourselves, we must begin to act. And in order to demonstrate to you that this is not idle, there are countries that are already working at it. About a year ago, the East African Community countries agreed that we were going to ban the importation of second-hand clothing. And the reason was very simple. In order to revive our textile industry, we cannot continue to import second-hand clothing. Uganda was involved, Kenya was involved. Uganda and Kenya chickened out because the United States of America said, if you ban second-hand clothing, then we are going to remove all your benefits under AGOA, Africa Growth Opportunity Act. Rwanda said, remove us. We have banned importation of foreign clothing, and they have banned it. That is resolve. That is leadership.
That's right.
Rwanda made a decision that in order to ensure that pollution was dealt with, we are going to do away with non-biodegradable polythene paper. While everybody else was still dilly-dallying, they banned it. And luckily in Kenya too, we banned it. You know, that to me is clearly indicative of leadership within. It must be within. And I conclude my answer with this reality. Most of us who are here know that Vietnam was at war until 1975. I remember when I was a Form 1 student and I was listening to the radio when the troops had captured Saigon in 1975. It had been bombed to the ground. Today, one of the largest producers of coffee in the world is Vietnam. And allow me a little latitude. If you look at the vests that you wear, they are either made in Vietnam or made in Bangladesh or made in Pakistan. Their textile industry is alive and well. Or your phone, it is assembled possibly in Vietnam or in China. The truth is we must work at this. And many of us who are here, sometimes I also suffer from this non-clinical depression. In which I ask, but are these things that I'm saying possible? I'm sure you have those battles. But then I ask myself, but I've seen China during my lifetime. I've seen these countries rise during our lifetimes. You've come from southern Cameroon, from Ambazonia, and came to this country, and you thought that things can't work, and the things that you thought could. When I drive and I see most of the people who are driving here, the GPS, there are villages in Africa which if you brought somebody from a village in Cameroon and sat in your car, and that lady in the GPS were talking, when they go home they'd say, our son now talks with spirits. It's true. Because sometimes I wonder, and they still believe they're talking with spirits, and the spirits tell you where you should go, and we arrive in the places. So you go home and they say that is the big spiritualist in the United States of America. So I think that the things that we think, we imagine cannot happen, can actually happen. Yes, your hand has been up.
Yeah. One place, we have different countries represented here. So one go Uganda. Okay, so this Cameroon, Sierra Leone, and then we take Uganda. Okay, so we'll do the first three, and then this is Southern Cameroon. Professor Lumumba, we are glad to see you live. Most of the people in this room are your fans. It is said that knowledge, wisdom are two different things. You can possess the knowledge that tomato is a fruit, but you may lack the wisdom to know that you don't put tomato in a fruit salad. Beware of infiltration. So, that said, embarked to speak the truth on behalf of, as an activist on behalf of Southern Cameroon, do you think that you will be able to resist the infiltration that comes with the territory? Because we in this room have been infiltrated before, and even now we are still being infiltrated. At your level, as you go, do you think you can withstand infiltration? Secondly, as you travel around Africa and speak to various people in different countries, what is one of the reasons you've been able to come up with of this inaction of African countries when it concerns a problem in another country? What is the cause of this inaction? Eloquence of silence, as you put it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon.
My name is Alhaji Dr. Graham Rogers. I have a message for you from your lovely friend, Alhaji Dr. Kaneyo Kela. Matter of fact, he was supposed to be here today, but he's on his way back because he's a parliamentarian now. And he asked me to really be here. I didn't know where I was coming. There's a gentleman who actually went out of his way to go to meet me halfway to bring me here. And he wanted to make sure that I'm here. And I should even take a photo with you to send it. So, he had always talked about him. Very nice when it comes to politics. About Sierra Leone election. We are the same party. It's a new party that was formed just 5 months ago. We almost won the election, but we gave it in because we didn't want to fight. I could have been one of the rebels in the bush today, but I decided, not with my PhD, I'm not going to do that, but there's a way we can do it. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people talking, and you already spoken something here, but we are not talking about certain things, especially we apply in Sierra Leone. When you let a leader stay there for too long and become one party system, it's like you bringing your mother-in-law in your house that don't like that marriage. And when you get in there, don't let him ask you if he's going to stay, how long he's going to stay. Ask him, when are you going to go back? Because we elect some of these people, they make this party one party system, and they get in there. Now this is the result we get. Like say in Cameroon, you guys have your government in exile. But some of these things, when you come up with a brilliant idea, but we started fighting among ourselves. Who is going to be the leader? Who is going to be the Minister of Finance to put money in his pocket? And that's what will break us down, because the bigger guy there, they have intelligence among you people, your own people, paying them on payroll. They are listening to you people. By the way, my background is a police officer. I was a police officer in Liberia, and I was trained in Israel. And I know these things. We might be sitting down here. There must be someone from air camp listening to what we're saying here. By the time you get out of here, we don't have to go and pay phone this time, or they just have a meeting. In fact, Professor PLO was there. Yes. So we have to work on some of these things here. If we don't do that, we're going to know we're fast.
That's right.
So your friends say hi, and please don't let me look ugly in front of you, because I'm going to take a picture with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Okay, Professor Lumumba, I'm from Uganda. I seem to agree with most of the speeches you gave, but I don't know whether you believe the way China is in Africa today. I was in China recently. I think we have to learn more about China, most especially even their political system. They ignore the world and they focus on productivity. People are productive, they produce. In Africa, we've never done anything. And what is happening today, we believe in democracy, and we seem to believe that the system that is in Europe and North America is the same system that we should be using in Africa, whether it is democracy or not, which I believe is one of the major reasons why we cannot move forward.
That's right.
We cannot be stuck for 100 years. Even today when you go to Africa, South Africa, there is none. Even in places where there are no wars. For example, in Uganda, we've never had access to clean water in so many parts. We have the source of the Nile, if you're familiar with it. We have Lake Victoria. We supply water from Uganda to Sudan, to Ethiopia, to Egypt, even Israel. We don't have access to clean water. Much as our politicians are so bad, we still lack so much we can do as other than the government. We still believe that the governments are supposed to be doing so much for us. But when you look at other countries, even, I don't want to use America, but if you look at all the private sector here, Facebook has nothing to do with the government. Google has nothing much to do with the government. So we have something that is missing. Today we have so many churches. I'm a born again. But I was in Africa. What would have been an industrial area? Everywhere there are churches. Where they are supposed to be industries, there are so many churches. We need churches, but there is something missing. We need a political disrupt. We need to disrupt our political system, which has nothing to do with the Western or democracy. There is something we need to come up with. Oh, we have to innovate something. I don't know what you want to say about it.
I think those are 3 questions. And Toby asked, in fact, the question that you've asked is very close to the unanswered question when you talked about democracy. As I grow older, and I hope perhaps wise, I hope, I observe a number of things in the recent past. In almost all African countries where we have held Western-type elections, after election there are conflicts. Because those who go into those elections, each party believes the elections are only free and fair if they are declared the winners. Number 2, the manner in which we mobilize ourselves is through ethnicity. So there is not essentially ideas that govern how we elect individuals into office. And I hold the view. This gentleman here is from Nairobi, Kenya, and he just reminded me where we met in 1973 and 1974. We were attending schools in the same neighborhood, and I can tell you one thing. We received free exercise books, free textbooks, free milk every Saturday. We paid 20 shillings only. Things were, garbage collection was 3 times a day in 1973 and 1974. In real terms, therefore, the quality of our lives have gone down because all those things have disappeared. And I know in many African countries you will say that that was the case. Today, in many African countries, if you can afford it, if you are well, in Africa you either go to South Africa or Dubai or India, or health services have gone down. Today, when we were growing up, we would drink water directly from the tap. Today, in every lower middle class house, if you don't have the sign on your table, water is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. In many ways, I think that we must re-interrogate our systems of government. Whether we are bold enough to do so, I do not know. The Ethiopians in 1984, after the revolution, after the removal of the Derg regime, came up with a unique thing which is unknown in any other African constitution. They came up with what they call ethnic federalism. And they said, we are different ethnicities. Let us recognize that. It is not incompatible with the nation called Ethiopia. We can be Oromo, we can be Amhara, we can be Tigrinya, we can be Somalis, but we are still in Ethiopia. And they said, but if you think it has not been done, in Switzerland, they have the Germans, the Italians, they have the French, they have the Flemish. Yeah. And they live together. They look at the things that they have to do in their communality. I am no longer persuaded that the things we have in Africa are even political parties. The things we create in Africa we call political parties, they are not political parties. Because if it was a political party, how is it possible for a group of individuals within 10 years to belong to 5 or 10 political parties? They destroy them as they go along. The net effect, therefore, is that our political processes are very destructive. If you look at any, of course I'm not saying that there are countries where there have not been successes. I know there are countries where the political structures are struggling, but they are giving the dividends. Countries such as Botswana, countries such as Namibia, and in the recent past we have seen Mozambique, even in Angola, they are success stories. But Tanzania is a good example where somehow they have succeeded in dealing with the organ of ethnicity. But it is important, and he used a very important word, that some of these things are idiosyncratic. Yes, the American system, for it to be what it is, has gone through the Declaration of Independence, through a civil war, through the civil rights movement, and it is still struggling. But we are quick to copy things. In fact, in the minds, particularly those of us who have had the advantage of education in Western Europe, we think the closer we are to things American, things European, the more civilized we are. And I'm submitting to us that perhaps there is wisdom in us, the younger generation, to begin to re-examine. You know, even African universities have a problem. Many African universities are certificate issuing institutions. There are no new ideas that are coming from those universities, whether it's in economics, whether it's in governance, whether it's in health, whether it's in education, whether it's in law. So I think that time has come that we must interrogate what you are saying. Look at the Chinese. In my lifetime, and I keep on saying in my life, today, out of 8 products in a typical middle-class household, 8 products are Chinese. Just look at your phone, even the one you think is made in America, the iPhone, is assembled in China. That's right. Look at your bag, even if it is Prada, it is possibly made in China. Yeah. I mean, how is it that they succeeded? There must be something, and that is why if you listen to me carefully, I never condemn China. I warn Africa about China. Because every country has every selfish reason to organize herself. That's right. And if you are disorganized, then you will be the prey. But Africa sometimes worries one. I went to the African Union, and you know the Chinese donated to us. The headquarters of the African Union that you see, that tall building, is a donation. And you can see I'm using the word very deliberately, and even the tone of my voice has changed. It's a donation. It cannot possibly be a donation. There is something that they'll get, and they are getting it. Yes. Do we blame them? No. It is us. It is us who must be organized. Throughout history, the more disorganized you are, the more exploited you will always be. And that is the law of politics and the law of nature. There is no free lunch. Yeah. The other thing that you talked about, do I think that I can survive infiltration? What I've discovered is this. Your true strength is not tested until you are tested. It is easy to say, I will not withstand it, let me be tested. And if I survive it, you'll give a testimony. That is the way it is. It is you who will give a testimony that he was. And then the question of inaction. The reason why many African leaders don't even bother is because if you examine most of them, in their own ways they are doing the same thing. In their own small ways, they are perpetrating this kind of atrocities against their people, either directly or indirectly. And therefore they say, when they come for him, the next time my people will also come for me. So there is a sense in which there is conspiracy of sorts. It's a conspiracy of silence. Nobody has the moral authority and the moral courage to speak against the other. I remember during the heady days in Zimbabwe, the only African president in the SADC region who stood up and spoke against this was Ian Khama of Botswana. He said, no, this individual has overstayed for too long. And if you look at Africa, there is something that is happening which is very unfortunate. In the 1990s, 1980s, what I said was true. Many of us thought that no matter how good you are, there is wisdom in leaving office. Even in African tradition, there were junior elders who took over from elders. But the more evils you perpetrate while you are in office, the more difficult it becomes to leave office.
That's right.
Because office becomes your immunity from prosecution. So you must be a life president so that you die in office. Because if you are removed from office, you will go into exile. And you've seen it in the case on many African leaders. Right now, we don't talk about it. The leader, the former leader of Ethiopia, Mengistu Haile Mariam, he is exiled in Zimbabwe. Or Yahya Jammeh of Gambia is exiled in Equatorial Guinea. And if they are not exiled, Hissène Habré of Chad is in jail in Senegal. Charles Taylor is in jail in Europe. Laurent Gbagbo is in jail. So African leaders, except in very few countries, and to this extent Kenya is good in this regard. We have two former retired presidents. Or Nigeria is also not doing very badly in this regard. Or Namibia is not doing bad in this regard. So even as we cite all these other examples, remember that if you go country by country, there are more countries in Africa today where when people retire, they actually can retire and they live in their countries, which is a good thing. It is a good thing because it is beginning to demonstrate that we are not a basket case and that we must not always, sometimes we condemn ourselves without recognizing that we have the ability to solve our problems. The other question is, you said something that is very important. I don't know, many of you must have read the book written by Wole Soyinka, The Trial of Christopher Okigbo. And in the trial of Christopher Okigbo, I think what Wole was saying is that each one of us must know our site of struggle. Your PhD, your spear and your bullets are your head. And there are those who will bear the arms, and everybody is as important as the other in this struggle. There are those who will give the money, there are those who will give their intellectual output, there are those who will actually be bearers of arms. But each one of us is contributing in our own unique way. The last thing that I want to say is, many of us, and I think this is necessary, sometimes feel very lonely and very helpless. And I think that there is a reason. Because when you feel lonely and helpless, that is when you reflect. And that is when you realize that these battles must involve others. And I think that each one of us also has a duty to inspect our sincerity. Whatever you do, I think you must have counsel with yourself and ask, am I genuine? I ask myself that question every so often. Am I genuine? Do I believe in this thing that I'm saying? Because you could be doing other things. I could be in Nairobi, Kenya. You could be somewhere else enjoying and not attending this particular function. The fact that you have made a decision to come here is in itself a testament that there is an element of concern. And that to me is what we should work on. And if we work on it, and I keep on repeating this, no instant coffee solutions, no microwave solutions. This is a marathon race. There are those who will survive it. There are those who will survive it when they are in heaven and they watch from heaven as things are changing. And our solace is each one of us is playing their part. But there is one thing that somebody reminded me recently, and I learned from it. Julius Kambarage Nyerere used to say, each one must play our part. But then the gentleman very cleverly, when he was asking me a question, I had never thought about it. But he said, but who has written the script? Now that you are playing your part. Who has written the script? And if you have answered the question, who has written the script? Who is the producer? And I think we must write our own script. We must produce our own movies, so that when we are playing our parts, it is a part on the basis of a script that will give us the result that we desire. Thank you, and God bless
you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to have all of you here. On behalf of the African Center, I would like to thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to introduce the First Lady, the wife of Professor PLO, who is right in our midst. We've been privileged to have her with us here to support us and to support Prof. Welcome to the United States, welcome to Boston, Massachusetts. We are honored to have you here. I know we've been doing a fundraising for the struggle. I'm a typical African. And in the African culture, when a stranger visits you, he goes back with a bag. And I know we all come from Africa, and as such, I know we still have that culture in us. So ladies and gentlemen, I know Prof is very well-to-do man. He can take care of himself and he can do whatever, no man is okay. But I'm a typical African, and I know they would leave this hall and they will have to travel back to Kenya. And they need something. They don't really need it, but we have to give them, put something in their bag so that they can go back to Kenya and make Kenyans really like they can from the United States. The speech that Professor PLO Lumumba just delivered, people pay millions to listen to that speech. Yes. We have been fortunate. I personally have been privileged to sit here and listen to such a wonderful speech, free of charge, no cost to hear. And I think, as an African, I am going to kickstart this fundraiser for Professor PLO Lumumba and the wife to travel back, not only to travel back to Kenya, but to travel to other parts of Africa where people cannot afford to pay them tickets and listen to his speech for free. So this cost is not for their ticket to go back to Kenya, because of course, I'm sure Professor already paid his ticket to come here with his wife and to go back to Kenya, but this is a token that we are going to give him so that he can be able to travel to other parts, to the less privileged areas of Africa, and preach the same message that we have been fortunate to get in the United States for free. I commence this fundraiser with a sum of $500, and I ask all of you to put your hands in your pocket and support this movement.
Thank you very much. Let me say how humbled I am by the realization that the things we say have received traction within and without the continent of Africa. I'm very humbled that those words have received residence in the hearts and minds of the old, as indeed they are. And it gladdens my heart when I listen to the recognition by young Africans that we must work to create a different Africa. And what I must conclude with, the reason why Africa has continued to suffer is because of our disunity. And the sooner we realize that, the safer we will be. If indeed we want to give Africa her pride of place, it is incumbent upon us to pose to ourselves the fundamental question: what are we doing in the little spaces where we are? If you are in the medical arena, what are you doing? If you are in the fourth industrial revolution, like my good friend from Uganda, what are we doing? And my good friend that has talked about the Marshall Plan, The only reason why we think we don't have the resources is because we don't take time to reflect. We have already demonstrated through the remittances that we make to our countries that we are worth more than $1 trillion United States dollars. If only we can organize ourselves. If only we can recognize the power that we have. 3 days ago, I listened to a young girl, and she said something that I found to be simple and complex and practical at once. That when the bird flies, the bird does not attend any flying school. The flight is in the bird. That when the fish swims, the fish does not attend a swimming school. The swim is in the fish. And I believe that within us, we have the flight and the swim. Let us use those innate abilities by organizing ourselves. But let us remind ourselves that there will always be hiccups. And those hiccups should serve to strengthen us, not to weaken our resolve. I thank you, and God bless you.